CIA headquarters, Langley, Virginia, August 18, 1953. On a summer night in 1953, a telegram landed on a desk inside the American Embassy in Tehran. It came from CIA headquarters, and the message was blunt: discontinue all operations against Mossadegh. Somewhere in a safe house across the city, a soft-spoken American with wire-rimmed glasses read those words. His name was Kermit Roosevelt Jr. He was the grandson of President Theodore Roosevelt, and he had been sent to Iran to overthrow its government. He looked at the telegram. Then he said, "No, we are not done here." That one decision, to disobey a direct order, would change the fate of an entire nation. It would turn one of America's closest allies into its bitterest enemy, and the consequences would last more than 70 years. Iran, late 1800s to 1950. To understand what happened in 1953, you first need to understand something most people have forgotten. For over a century, Iran loved America. While the British and the Russians fought over Iran like two dogs over a bone, the United States had no colonial history there. No army bases, no exploited oil fields. Americans showed up as teachers, advisors, and engineers. The Iranian government even hired American citizens to manage the national treasury. But there was one thing Iran could never escape: oil. In 1908, a British businessman struck oil in southern Iran. Within a few years, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, which would later become BP, built one of the largest refineries in the world. Iranian oil powered the British Navy. It heated British homes. It made British shareholders rich. And Iran got almost nothing. Between 1945 and 1950, the company's profits were nearly 3 times what it paid the Iranian government. When Iran asked to see the books, the company refused. When Iran pointed out that Venezuela, producing roughly the same amount of oil, received far more money, the company shrugged. One man decided this had gone on long enough. His name was Mohammad Mossadegh. Tehran, April 1951. Mossadegh was in his 70s. He was skinny, he was balding, and he had a habit that made diplomats uncomfortable. He liked to receive foreign ambassadors while lying in bed, wearing his pajamas. He gave speeches in parliament from that bed, which his aides would carry into the chamber. He cried during debates. He fainted during arguments. Western officials called him erratic. But Mossadegh was the most popular leader Iran had ever known. He believed in democracy. He believed in his country's right to control its own oil. And in March 1951, the Iranian parliament voted to nationalize the entire oil industry. Mossadegh was appointed prime minister 1 month later. The British were furious. They pulled their engineers out of Iran. They convinced every major oil company on earth to boycott Iranian oil. They blockaded Iranian ports. Within months, Iran's economy was bleeding out. But Mossadegh would not back down. So the British came up with a different plan. They would remove him through a secret coup. There was just one problem. They could not do it alone. Washington, D.C., January 1953. When the British first asked President Truman for help overthrowing Mossadegh, Truman said no. But in January 1953, Dwight Eisenhower became president. And the British changed their pitch. They stopped talking about oil. They started talking about communism. Mossadegh, they argued, was letting the Tudeh Party, Iran's Communist Party, grow too powerful. If he stayed in power, Iran could fall into the Soviet orbit. The entire Middle East could follow. It was not entirely true. Mossadegh was no communist. But in the fog of the Cold War, the fear was enough. CIA Director Allen Dulles approved an initial budget of $1 million. The plan was given a name: Operation Ajax. And the man chosen to lead it on the ground was Kermit Roosevelt Jr., a career spy who looked more like a librarian than a secret agent. President Eisenhower never attended a single planning meeting. He left no documents behind. He received only oral briefings, always in private, always over cocktails. If the operation went wrong, there would be nothing connecting it to the White House. Tehran, Iran, July 19th, 1953. Roosevelt crossed into Iran from Iraq under the alias James Lockwood. He settled into a safe house rented by British intelligence and spent his days at the Turkish embassy playing tennis, so no one would suspect a thing. Behind the scenes, he was building a machine. He bribed Iranian newspaper editors to print false stories claiming Mossadegh was a secret communist. He paid religious leaders to denounce the prime minister from their pulpits. He hired thugs from athletic clubs and the slums of South Tehran to stage protests. Some of those mobs were paid to pretend they supported Mossadegh and then attack symbols of the monarchy. The goal was to make it look like Mossadegh was trying to destroy the Shah. Everyone in the operation had a code name. The Shah was Boy Scout. Mossadegh was the Old Bugger. Roosevelt himself, thanks to a border guard who misread his passport, ended up being called Mr. Scar on right forehead. While waiting for the plan to unfold, Roosevelt played a single song on repeat in his safe house. Luck Be a Lady Tonight, from the Broadway musical Guys and Dolls. He was going to need it. The entire plan depended on one thing: the Shah signing a royal decree to fire Mossadegh and replace him with a general named Fazlollah Zahedi. Without that signature, nothing could move forward. But the Shah was terrified. Just a year earlier, he had tried to dismiss Mossadegh. Massive street protests forced him to back down. He did not want to go through that again. Roosevelt pressured him for weeks. American officials warned him that doing nothing meant losing his throne to the communists. Finally, on August 13th, the Shah signed. Tehran, night of August 15, 1953. An army officer arrived at Mossadegh's home carrying the Shah's decree, but Mossadegh already knew he was coming. Mossadegh refused to leave. He arrested the officer. Then he went on the radio and told the nation he had foiled a coup. Within hours, his supporters flooded the streets. Members of the two-day party marched alongside them, tearing down statues of the Shah's father, chanting, "Yankees go home." The Shah panicked. He grabbed his wife, Queen Soraya, and flew to Baghdad in a small plane. From Baghdad, he flew to Rome. He checked into a hotel, convinced he would never see Iran again. In Washington, the CIA believed it was over. The agency sent the now famous telegram ordering Roosevelt to pull out and abandon the mission. And this is where the story turns. Roosevelt read the telegram. A colleague standing in the room watched him do it. And Roosevelt refused. He told the colleague the operation was still alive. Tehran, August 16th to 18th, 1953. Mossadegh made a mistake that would cost him everything. Believing he had already won, he told his supporters to go home and return to their normal lives. The two-day members left the streets. The rallies stopped. Roosevelt moved fast. He pumped more cash into the streets. He spread a new story, that Mossadegh had not defeated a coup, but had instead tried to illegally seize the throne. Fake newspapers carried fake headlines. Paid agents carried the message through the bazaars. Meanwhile, General Zahedi, who had been hiding in a friend's house since the first attempt failed, secretly reached out to military officers still loyal to the Shah. Tehran, August 19th, 1953. Crowds paid by the CIA filled the streets, this time chanting in favor of the Shah. Mossadegh, alarmed by the chaos, called in the army. But the army was a right-wing stronghold. Instead of protecting the prime minister, soldiers turned their weapons on his supporters. General Zahedi appeared on top of a tank and declared himself the new prime minister. By afternoon, tanks surrounded Mossadegh's house. Shells hit the building. Gunfire erupted across Tehran. Around 300 people were killed in the fighting that day. Mossadegh, still in his pajamas, climbed over his back wall and escaped into a neighbor's yard. He was arrested the next day. Just like that, it was over. The CIA had overthrown a democratic government for less than $1 million. The entire operation, from start to finish, took 4 days. Tehran, August 22nd, 1953. 3 days later, the Shah returned from Rome. Cheering crowds lined the streets. He walked into his palace and reportedly told Roosevelt, "I owe my throne to God, my people, my army, and to you." Mossadegh was put on trial for treason. He was originally sentenced to death, but the Shah reduced it to 3 years in solitary confinement, followed by house arrest for the rest of his life. He died in 1967, alone and forgotten by the world. As a reward for American help, the Shah signed over 40% of Iran's oil fields to US companies. The CIA considered Operation Ajax a masterpiece, low cost, high reward. Roosevelt went home a hero. He left the CIA in 1958 and became a consultant. His client? The Iranian government he had helped install. Iran, 1957 to 1979. But the Shah's throne was built on a lie, and lies have a way of rotting from the inside. With CIA and Israeli Mossad training, the Shah created Savak, a secret police force that became one of the most feared in the Middle East. Political opponents were arrested, tortured, and disappeared. Any voice of dissent was crushed. The tools America gave the Shah to keep his throne were the same tools that made his people hate him. And because the Shah was seen as America's man, that hatred spread to America too. For 25 years, nobody in Washington noticed. The CIA station in Tehran was focused entirely on spying on the Soviet Union along Iran's northern border. Every report about Iran's internal situation came from Savak itself, and Savak always said the same thing: everything is fine. However, everything was not fine. Tehran, February 1979. 26 years after the coup, the Iranian Revolution swept the Shah from power. Ayatollah Khomeini returned from exile and declared Iran an Islamic republic. America was renamed the Great Satan. And then came the moment that sealed everything. Iranian students stormed the US Embassy in Tehran, the very same building the CIA had used as its base during Operation Ajax. The students knew that history. They feared the embassy would be used to stage another coup, just like in 1953. 52 American diplomats were held hostage for 444 days. Diplomatic relations between the two countries were severed completely. They have never been restored. Epilogue. Mohammad Mossadegh is now considered one of the most beloved figures in modern Iranian history. His portrait hangs in homes across the country. Leaders on every side of Iran's political spectrum invoke his memory. In 2000, U.S. Secretary of State Madeleine Albright publicly acknowledged America's role in the coup for the first time. In 2013, the CIA officially declassified documents confirming its involvement. Operation Ajax cost less than $1 million to execute. But the real price, a democracy destroyed, a people betrayed, and an enmity stretching across 7 decades, has never stopped being paid. When you secretly break another country's democracy, you do not get to be surprised when its people stop believing in yours.